Okay, welcome back to my training program. In this topic, we are going to talk about successful tips for concept of pay for performance. Let's talk about one of the most sensitive and motivating parts of annual review process, money. It's common for a company to tie performance review to financial rewards, whether that's a raise, a bonus, or some other form of compensation. And when it's done right, this pay for performance model can be a powerful motivator. But here's the catch: when money enters the picture, so does pressure. Employees pay close attention to how these decisions are made. If it's not done clearly and fairly, it can lead to frustration, confusion, and even resentment. That's why this topic deserves extra care. In this module, we will go over practical, successful tips to make sure that financial compensation is used as a positive tool, one that rewards the right behavior, supports company goals, and reinforce a culture of fairness and performance. Because pay for performance is not just about rewarding effort, it's about building a system where performance and rewards are meaningfully connected and where every employee feels seen, valued, and motivated to do their best. So, as usual, I would like to start off with a quote of Anne Mulcahy. She once said that employees who believe that management is concerned about them as a whole person, not just an employee, are more productive, more satisfied, and more fulfilled. Satisfied employees mean satisfied customers, which leads to profitability. And that couldn't be more true. When we think about productivity, we often jump straight to skills, KPIs, and results. But real productivity, the kind that lasts, comes from people who feel cared for. When employees know that their manager sees them as human first, not just job titles or performance metrics, everything changes. They become more engaged, more loyal, more willing to go the extra mile. And guess what? The energy flows straight to the customer experience. Happy, fulfilled employees treat customers better. Better service leads to stronger loyalty, and that leads to, yes, profitability. So, if we want stronger business outcomes, don't just focus on the numbers, focus on people. Because when you invest in them as whole people, they will show up for your business in ways that numbers alone could never capture. Let's be honest, when it comes to compensation, no one likes surprise, especially the kind that leaves employee feeling confused, disappointed, or blindsided. That's why one of the golden rules when tying pay to performance is this: no surprises. If an employee's raise or lack of one comes as a shock during their annual reviews, something went wrong way before that meeting ever happened. The truth is, performance benchmarks and expectations should never be a mystery. They should be clear, specific, and shared well in advance. Ideally, those benchmarks should be introduced as early orientation. That way, employees understand from the very beginning how performance is measured, what success looks like, and how it connects to compensation. When people know the rules of the game, they play with confidence. But when things feel vague or last minute, it can lead to frustration, mistrust, and disengagement, even if the review itself was fair. So remember, Transparency isn't just nice to have, it's essential. Set clear expectations, communicate them consistently, check in regularly, because if your employees reach the end of the year surprised by their outcome, it's not just a performance issue, it's a communication issue. Another point, when it comes to performance reviews, it's easy to get caught up in the exciting stuff, bonuses, incentives, maybe even stock options. But before you jump ahead to the rewards, here's a simple reminder. Focus on the basic first. The core of an effective review process is not in the parks, it's in the clarity. As a reviewer, you need to fully understand how the performance review system works, the benchmark, the expectation, and the process itself. Why? Because if you don't understand the standards, how can you expect your employees to? Performance review should be built on clear, measurable, and fair criteria. That's your foundation. Once that's in place, once everyone understands what is being evaluated and why, then you can start by tying in rewards like bonuses or long-term incentives. But if you skip the basics, the whole system becomes confusing, and worse, it can be unfair. So before you roll out the extras, make sure you have mastered the essentials. A solid understanding of the review process is what builds trust, consistency, and meaningful results. Have you ever been to one of those kids competitions where everybody gets a trophy? It's heartwarming, sure, but let's be honest, it doesn't exactly inspire greatness. The same ideas applies to the workplace. If everyone received the same rating, the same raise, or the same pat on the back, regardless of how they performed, you are sending the message that effort and excellence doesn't really matter. And that's the problem. People are naturally wired to strive for more, to push themselves, to grow, to stand out. That drive is not just healthy, it's an asset to your company. But to keep that drive alive, there has to be a visible difference between what high performers receive versus those who are just skating by. That's where the concept of sharing clear disparity comes in. In your performance appraisal, don't flatten the results just to keep things comfortable. Make it clear who excelling and why, and let the reward reflects that. Whether it's compensation, recognition, development opportunities, and the difference should be meaningful. So when people see the performance truly matters, it lights a fire, It boosts motivation, sharpens focus, and elevates the entire team. Because when the bar is real and reachable, people will rise to meet it. Another point, let's face it, when we design incentive system, it's easy to focus on the high performer. After all, they go above and beyond. They bring results. But if we want to build a truly strong and sustainable culture, we have to remember one key truth. There is no I in a team. And that's where the idea of one for all and all for one comes in. The goal of an annual review system is not just to reward individuals, is to drive productivity, morale, and engagement across the board. If the system only rewards the top 1%, you risk discouraging the rest of your team, even if they have been working hard and making solid contribution. So, what's the solution? Simple. Balance individual and team recognition. Celebrate team wins, reward them success, and keep morale high by showing that everyone's effort counts. Then on top of that, recognize your MVPs, most valuable performers, the ones who went the extra miles, exceeded expectations, and inspired others. You can even take it a step further by letting the team nominate an MVP themselves. That not only builds engagement, but also strengthens trust, ownership, and accountability within the team. When employees know their effort matters, both individually and collectively, they become more connected to their team, to their work, more committed to the company, and more motivated to grow. And in the end, that's win for everyone. So after you have listened all these things, let me summarize all these things in a story as a case that highlights just how important clarity and communication are in a performance-based reward system. Ethan has just hit a big milestone, his 1-year anniversary at the Snacker Cracker Companies. He has worked hard, stayed committed, and is genuinely excited to receive a raise. His annual reviews go smoothly. His manager even tells him he's doing an excellent job. But there's one thing missing: no mention of raise. Ethan assumed the raise will show up in his paycheck, but a month goes by, nothing. Frustrated and confused, he talks to his coworker, Javier, who says, "Yep, same thing happened to me." Javier explained that the company never clearly communicated what the benchmarks were for pay increases, and he had to contact HR himself just to figure it out. Eventually, Ethan learns that while his performance was good, he didn't meet the specific benchmarks required for a raise. Not because he wasn't trying, but because he didn't know what they were. No guidance, no reference points, no transparency. So this story perfectly illustrates what happens when companies fail to live by the principles of no surprise. Ethan didn't fail the system failed him. And it's a reminder that for performance reviews and pay for performance models to work, expectation must be clear, consistent, and communicate upfront. So there are 2 questions for you. What was the biggest mistake the company made in this situation? Second, what could the manager or HR team have done differently to improve this process? Think of it, and you may want to write down your answers. I have some my point of view as well. For the first question, what was the biggest mistake the company made in this situation? I think company failed to communicate clear performance benchmarks tied to pay raises, pay increases. They also failed to provide training or guidance on how the system works, leaving employees like Ethan and Javier confused and disengaged. So manager didn't address pay expectation during the review, leading to unrealistic assumptions. So these are some of the big mistakes the company made. Second question, what could the manager or HR team could have done differently to improve this process. I think they should have shared performance benchmarks early on, ideally during onboarding or regular checks-in. During this review, managers should have discussed Ethan's current standing in relation to the raised benchmarks, provided specific feedbacks. HR could support managers by providing a clear, easy-to-understand framework for communicating incentives, benchmarks, and evaluation process. So these are the things they could have done to be better. So see you in next module, next topic.